Picture this. I'm standing at the edge of my kitchen, the faint hum of a late summer evening seeping through the cracked window, and I'm staring at a chipped coffee mug that's seen better days. It's not just any mug. It's the one Ryan, my husband, painted for me on our first anniversary, a clumsy heart scrawled in red that's faded to a dull pink. That mug, it's us, worn, a little broken, but still holding on. I'm Jessica, 30 years old, living in a quiet suburban pocket just outside Chicago, where the streets are lined with identical houses, and the biggest excitement is the annual block party. Life here moves slow, like molasses on a cold day. But lately there's a current under the surface I can't quite name. I've been married to Ryan for 5 years now. He's 32, a mechanic down at Harper's garage, with hands so rough from turning wrenches, they feel like sandpaper against my skin. There's always a smudge of grease on his cheek, a badge of his long hours, and a rugged kind of charm in the way his tired blue eyes crinkle when he smiles. But that smile's been scarce lately. He comes home late, shoulders slumped, barely saying a word before collapsing on the couch. I see the stress etched into his face, the kind that makes you wonder if it's just work, or something deeper, something he's not telling me. I don't push, though. Not yet. I just keep hoping he'll open up, like he used to. Me? I work part-time as a receptionist at a dental office on Main Street. It's not glamorous, scheduling cleanings and dodging complaints about wait times, but it's something. Barely enough to keep us afloat, if I'm honest. Our little 2-bedroom house feels like it's shrinking under the weight of unpaid bills stacked on the kitchen counter, a silent reminder of every late payment and every skipped dinner out. The walls are scuffed, the carpet's fraying at the edges, and the faucet in the bathroom drips no matter how many times Ryan's tried to fix it. It's home, though, cluttered with memories of better days. Then there's Ethan, Ryan's best friend since high school, and by extension, a constant in my life too. At 33, Ethan's the kind of man who walks into a room and owns it without trying. Where Ryan's rough around the edges, Ethan's polished, always in a crisp shirt, a flashy watch glinting on his wrist, and a confidence that borders on arrogance. He runs a small construction business, and somehow, he's always got cash to burn. He's the guy who shows up with a bottle of expensive whiskey or insists on treating us to steak dinners at some upscale spot we'd never afford on our own. The three of us, we're a tight trio, or at least we used to be. I think back to summer barbecues in our tiny backyard, the smell of charcoal and Ryan. I wake up to the sound of a distant lawnmower buzzing through the neighborhood, the kind of mundane hum that usually fades into the background. But this morning, it's different. There's a heaviness in my chest before I even open my eyes, a nagging dread I can't shake as I roll over in our creaky bed. Ryan's already gone, probably left early for the garage, and the empty space beside me feels colder than it should. I drag myself out of bed, my bare feet hitting the worn hardwood floor, and shuffle to the kitchen. That's when I see it, a red stamped envelope sticking out of the mail slot, glaring at me like a warning sign. My stomach drops as I pick it up, the words "Final Notice" screaming from the front. I tear it open with trembling fingers, and there it is in black and white, foreclosure warning. We owe $5,200 in overdue mortgage payments, and we've got 30 days to pay up or lose everything. My breath catches in my throat, a sinking feeling spreading through me like ice water. I can't let Ryan see this, not yet. He's already carrying so much. So, I shove the letter under a pile of junk mail on the counter, burying it like a dirty secret, and try to steady my racing heart. Breakfast is a quiet affair, but the tension hangs thick in the air. Ryan's sitting across from me at our small, wobbly table, poking at a bowl of off-brand cereal with a spoon. His face is drawn, those tired blue eyes fixed on nothing in particular. He mutters something about a slow month at the garage, his voice low and heavy, like he's dragging the words out of himself. I force a smile, the kind that feels like it might crack my face, and tell him we'll figure it out. My words sound hollow even to me, but I can't let him see how scared I am. We've been through rough patches before, but this feels different, deeper, like we're teetering on the edge of something we can't come back from. I sip my bitter, day-old coffee and try not to think about how we haven't had a proper date night in months, how dinner lately is just cheap canned soup heated up on the stove, or how we've started snapping at each other over the smallest things. Last week we argued for an hour about whether to sell my grandmother's old ring, a tarnished silver band with a tiny sapphire that's been sitting in a drawer for years. It's not worth much, but it's all I have left of her. Ryan said we needed the cash. I said it wasn't enough to make a difference anyway. We went to bed angry that night, the silence between us louder than any words. The days drag on, each one heavier than the last, until one evening when Ethan stops by. It's a casual visit, or at least it's supposed to be. He's sprawled on our sagging couch, cracking open a few days after that tense evening with Ethan lounging on our couch, I find myself alone in the house. The quiet almost suffocating. Ryan's at the garage, pulling another long shift, and I'm in the living room, folding a pile of laundry that never seems to shrink. The scent of cheap detergent clings to the air, and the hum of a neighbor's car passing by is the only sound breaking the stillness. I'm lost in thought, smoothing out one of Ryan's faded work shirts when the doorbell chimes. My heart skips a beat. Unexpected visitors aren't common around here. I open the door to find Ethan standing there, his polished look a stark contrast to the chipped paint on our porch. He's wearing a dark button-up, sleeves rolled up just enough to show off that flashy watch, and his expression is unreadable. I invite him in, figuring he's just dropping by to check on us, but something in the way he moves, deliberate and heavy, sets me on edge. We end up on the couch, the laundry basket pushed aside, and he sits closer than I'd like, his knee brushing against mine. I shift away slightly, trying to keep things casual, but his tone cuts through any pretense of small talk. His voice is low, almost a whisper, as he leans in and says he's got a solution to our problems. I blink at him, confused, until he lays it out plain and cold. He'll pay off our entire debt, all $1,200 of it, wiped clean. No strings attached, except one. My breath catches as he spells out his condition, his words slicing through me like a blade. He wants something deeply personal from me, a single moment of intimacy, as his price. My face burns hot, a mix of shock and shame flooding through me, and I stammer out that he can't possibly mean it, that this has to be some kind of twisted joke. But Ethan's eyes are hard, calculating, not a trace of humor in them. He calls it a simple transaction, nothing emotional, just business, and assures me Ryan never has to know. His voice is smooth, almost detached, like he's negotiating a contract for one of his construction deals, not tearing apart the boundaries of our friendship. I'm reeling, a storm of emotions crashing over me. Anger surges first. How dare he think I'd even consider this? How dare he put me in this position? Disgust follows, a sick feeling twisting in my gut at the thought of betraying Ryan, of letting Ethan anywhere near me in that way. But then, as I sit there, hands trembling, another thought creeps in, unbidden and ugly. Desperation. I picture that foreclosure notice hidden under the junk mail, the ticking clock counting down to losing our home, the weight of every unpaid bill crushing us. I think of Ryan's exhausted face, the way he's breaking under the pressure, and for a fleeting, horrifying second, I wonder if this could be the way out. I shake the thought off as quickly as it comes, my voice sharp as I tell Ethan to get out, to never bring this up again. I practically shove him toward the door, my heart pounding so hard I can hear it in my ears, but even as he leaves, his offer lingers like a shadow I can't escape. The next few days are torture. I go through the motions, making coffee, answering phones at the dental office, smiling at Ryan when he drags himself through the door. But inside, I'm a mess. At night, I lie awake next to him, staring at the ceiling while his steady breathing fills the room. My mind won't stop spinning. I imagine what it would feel like to be free of the debt, to not wake up every morning with that suffocating dread. I picture telling Ryan we're safe, seeing relief wash over his face for the first time in months. But then I think of the cost, the secret I'd have to carry, the piece of myself I'd be giving up. I feel like I'm splitting in two, torn between protecting our life together and destroying it with one terrible choice. Every time I close my eyes, I see Ethan's cold stare, hear his voice calling it. Here I am, caught in the thick of a chilly Friday night, the kind of evening where the air bites just enough to make you pull your sweater a little tighter. The house feels smaller tonight, the walls pressing in as the faint scent of motor oil lingers on Ryan's jacket, slung over the back of a chair. He got home early from the garage for once, his boots still caked with the day's grime, but there's a rare lightness in his step. He's sprawled on the recliner now, a cold beer in his hand, the amber bottle catching the dim glow of the living room lamp. His tired blue eyes flicker with a quiet contentment as he takes a long sip, letting out a satisfied sigh. It's a moment of peace I haven't seen in him for weeks, and it twists something deep in my chest, knowing what's coming. Around 7 p.m., the doorbell cuts through the stillness, sharp and insistent. My heart lurches as I shuffle to answer it, already knowing who's on the other side. Ethan stands there, his polished frame a stark contrast to the peeling paint of our porch, a bottle of cheap whiskey dangling from his hand like a casual alibi. He flashes that confident smirk, the one that always seems to know more than it lets on, and steps inside without waiting for an invitation. I mumble something about joining us in the living room, my voice thinner than I mean it to be, and trail behind him, my hands fidgeting at my sides. We settle in, the three of us, with the TV droning on in the background, a mindless sitcom with canned laughter that none of us are paying attention to. The flickering screen casts shadows across Ryan's face as he chuckles at Ethan's small talk, oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. I'm a mess, and I can't hide it. My hands tremble as I reach for a glass of water, the liquid sloshing over the rim and spilling onto the coffee table. I curse under my breath, grabbing a napkin to mop it up, but my movements are jerky, uncoordinated. I can feel Ethan's gaze on me, sharp and knowing, while I avoid looking at either of them. My eyes dart to the carpet, to the scuffed edge of the table, anywhere but at Ryan's relaxed posture or Ethan's calculated calm. I'm perched on the edge of the couch, my body rigid, every muscle coiled tight like a spring ready to snap. Ethan, though, is the picture of ease. He leans back, one arm draped over the armrest, pouring shots of that cheap whiskey into mismatched glasses with a steady hand. His voice is smooth as he suggests we play a game to loosen up, some old drinking challenge from their high school days. He laughs, a low, easy sound, as he nudges Ryan to take another shot, reminiscing about wild nights and stupid bets they made as teenagers. Ryan grins, caught up in the nostalgia, and downs the drink without a second thought, not noticing how Ethan keeps refilling his glass, pushing him past his usual limit. I sit there, frozen, my own glass untouched in my hand, the bitter smell of the whiskey turning my stomach. Every word out of Ethan's mouth feels like a chess move, deliberate and precise, steering the night exactly where he wants it to go. He's weaving stories, drawing Ryan deeper into the haze of alcohol and memories, while I'm stuck on the sidelines, my mind screaming with the weight of what I've agreed to. My stomach churns, a tight knot of dread and guilt that won't unravel, and I can barely breathe through it. Then, under the coffee table, out of Ryan's line of sight, Ethan's hand brushes against mine. A fleeting, intentional touch, like a silent signal. It's a reminder of the deal, of the line I'm about to cross, and the contact sends a jolt through me, electric and sickening. My breath hitches, and I yank my hand back, nearly knocking over my glass again. For a split second, I'm on the verge of bolting from the room, my legs twitching with the urge to run, to escape this suffocating trap. But I don't. I'm sitting there, frozen on the edge of the couch, the weight of my decision pressing down on me like a physical force, suffocating and relentless. The room feels smaller now, the air thick with tension I can't escape. Ryan's laughter fades into a soft, slurred mumble as his head lolls back against the recliner, the empty whiskey glass slipping from his hand to rest on the armrest. His breathing slows, deepening into gentle snores, a sound so familiar it cuts me to the core. The TV drones on in the background, its muffled chatter a cruel contrast to the storm raging inside me. Ethan's eyes meet mine, sharp and unyielding, and with a subtle tilt of his head, he gestures toward the hallway just beyond the living room. My heart slams against my ribs, each beat a desperate plea to turn back, but my feet move anyway, betraying me as I stand. The hallway is dimly lit, a single flickering bulb casting long shadows across the scuffed walls. Every step feels heavier than the last, the worn carpet muffling my movements as I follow Ethan just out of Ryan's view. I can still hear Ryan's steady breathing, so close it's like he's right beside me, unaware of the betrayal unfolding mere feet away. Ethan turns to face me, his presence looming in the cramped space, and before I can second-guess myself, he pulls me close. His grip is firm, possessive, and a wave of revulsion crashes over me as his hands find my skin. I want to push him away, to scream, to shatter this moment before it can take root. But I don't. I can't. Instead, I shut down, my mind retreating to a cold, mechanical place where I'm nothing but a bystander in my own body. I focus on the debt, on the numbers, $15,200, ticking down with every agonizing second. Each moment is a transaction, a hollow exchange, stripping away pieces of me I'll never get back. It's over quickly, a fleeting act cloaked in silence, but it feels like an eternity has carved itself into my soul. My skin crawls as I pull away, the air between us heavy with unspoken shame. I adjust my clothes with trembling hands, my fingers fumbling over fabric as if it could somehow erase what just happened. Ethan steps back, his expression detached, almost clinical, as if this was nothing more than a business deal sealed with a handshake. He mutters, "Deal's done," his voice low and emotionless, and reaches into his pocket. He pulls out a check, already written out for $15,200, the ink stark against the pale paper. He hands it to me without ceremony, his fingers brushing mine for just a moment before he turns away. I stare at the check, the numbers blurring as my vision swims, and a sick realization settles in. I've sold a piece of myself, something irreplaceable, for this scrap of paper. Ethan walks back to the living room, his steps casual, as if nothing significant transpired. As if he didn't just fracture the foundation of everything I hold dear. I hear him settle back onto the couch, the faint clink of his glass against the table, resuming his place in a world that hasn't changed for him. I linger in the hallway, unable to move, my body rooted to the spot as tears burn behind my eyes. The dim light feels like it's closing in, the shadows stretching and twisting into accusations I can't face. Ryan's soft snores echo from the recliner, each one a dagger twisting deeper into my chest. How could I do this to him? How could I stand here, holding the price of my betrayal, while he sleeps so peacefully, trusting me completely? My breath comes in shallow gasps, my throat tight with the weight of unshed tears. I want to crumble, to let the sobs break free, but I can't. Not here. Not now. Not where he might hear. Then, I hear him stir, his voice groggy and thick with sleep as he mumbles, "Jess, you okay?" My heart stops, panic flooding through me as I force my voice to steady, to sound like nothing's wrong. "Yeah." I manage. The next morning dawns gray and heavy, the kind of sky that mirrors the weight in my chest. I'm up before the sun, unable to sleep, the events of last night replaying in my mind like a broken record I can't turn off. I slip out of bed quietly, careful not to wake Ryan, and clutch that check in my hand, the paper crinkling under my tight grip. It feels like a brand, a mark of what I've done, but I can't think about that now. I have to act fast before I lose my nerve. I drive to the bank just as it opens, the streets eerily empty, my breath fogging up the car window in the chilly dawn. My hands shake as I slide the check across the counter to the teller, avoiding her curious gaze. She processes it without a word, and by noon, the debt is cleared. $15,200 wiped away as if it never existed. Our house is safe. The foreclosure notice that haunted me for weeks is now just a bad memory, a ghost that can't touch us anymore. But the relief I expected, the lightness I thought would come, it's nowhere to be found. Instead, there's a hollow ache, a gnawing guilt that festers in the pit of my stomach, refusing to let me go. Back home, I try to act normal, but it's like I'm wearing a mask that doesn't quite fit. My phone buzzes relentlessly throughout the day, Ethan's name flashing on the screen with missed calls and texts. I don't answer. I can't. Every time I see his name, my skin crawls with the memory of his touch, the cold transaction that unfolded in the shadows of our hallway. I delete his messages without reading them, block his number, and cut him out of our lives like a surgeon removing a tumor. No explanation, no goodbye, just silence. But Ryan notices. Of course he does. A few days later, while we're eating dinner, boxed mac and cheese, a small step up from canned soup, he looks up from his plate, his brow furrowed, and asks why we haven't seen Ethan lately. His voice is casual, but there's a flicker of confusion in his tired blue eyes. I freeze, my fork halfway to my mouth, and force out a lie. He's been busy, I mumble, staring at the table, unable to meet his gaze for more than a second. I can feel the weight of his stare, the unspoken questions hanging between us. But he doesn't push. Not yet. Still, I know he senses something's off, and that only deepens the shame twisting inside me. The weeks that follow are a blur of forced normalcy. Ryan starts to notice the financial turnaround, the way the bills aren't piling up anymore, the way the bank stopped calling with threats. One evening, as we're sitting on the couch, watching some old rerun, he turns to me, a small, hopeful smile tugging at his lips, and asks how we managed to catch up. I plaster on a grin, the kind that feels like it might shatter my face, and tell him I got a bonus at work. A big one. He raises an eyebrow, surprised but grateful, and pulls me into a quick hug, murmuring how proud he is of me. His warmth, his trust, it's a knife to my heart. I bury my face in his shoulder so he can't see the tears welling up, the lie burning on my tongue. I want to tell him everything, to let the truth spill out and cleanse me of this burden, but I can't. I won't. I've chosen to protect him from this, to shield him from the ugliness of what I did, even if it means carrying the weight alone. Sleep becomes a battleground. Night after night, I'm plagued by dreams that drag me back to that hallway, to the flickering light and the suffocating silence. I relive every moment, every choice, my mind replaying the scene in excruciating detail until I wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, my heart racing like I've just run a marathon. Ryan stirs beside me sometimes, his voice thick with sleep as he asks if I'm okay. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.